Good morning. And again, happy Thanksgiving. It's a wonderful day, yes, isn't it? Yesterday, I got the great blessing of receiving a text from one of my granddaughters. She is turning 15 on Saturday. And she, usually we have a Randall tradition where you only send gifts like 3 months later, you know. But this year, quite surprisingly, Chris decided we were going to do it on time. And so she went out and she researched, and we talked to one of the 16-year-old girls in the congregation who knew cool clothes, and we got some recommendations about where to go. And Chris ran to the PacSun last week, which is the store that we were assured that every girl this age wants to get clothes from, and so Chris picked out something, sent it down, and then we wondered, because one of the other Randall traditions is we never hear anything when it comes. But I got a text yesterday in the middle of the afternoon that said, Papa and Gigi, thank you, in all caps. This is perfect. It's exactly what I wanted. I've always wanted something from this store. And it went on. And then we ended up in almost an hour's worth of texting back and forth, which in our family just doesn't happen, okay? I know some people keep in good touch, but with us it's rare to have that kind of exchange. But I was thinking about that in terms of Thanksgiving Day. And I realized how important that was, how that made me feel, and how it made Chris feel, and how it actually made Anna Grace feel as well. The gift that had been given, and then the response, and that led to a conversation, is exactly the kind of blessing that Thanksgiving Day is all about. The blessing that she gave us by responding was only available because of her awareness that there was something greater than just simply that jacket that we sent, that it represented the fact that we really loved her, and she responded with thanksgiving. The gospel lesson that we just heard, why do you worry about this or that, what you will wear, what you will eat, what you will drink, when in fact you know that you will be provided for. May not always be exactly the provision you expect or even want, but God is always there for us all the time, providing blessings. The first thing that we have to have for Thanksgiving Day to be effective is awareness. Awareness that God is all the time planting blessings in the midst of our life. And if we, as they say, stop and smell the roses once in a while, and we start to open our eyes, we will discover that there's somebody who loves us and has created a world so full of good news that even in the midst of very difficult times, things that go wrong, even then, if we have our eyes and our ears, our taste buds, and our receptivity to the people around us, we will discover God has surrounded us with blessings if we'll only pay attention to them. Oftentimes when people are going through very, very difficult things, they will say later on, yeah, but the reason I got through it was because someone reached out and gave me a hug, or someone showed up and just simply brought a gallon of milk because they knew I needed a gallon of milk right now. Or they showed up and sent a card, but they showed up one way or another. And it gave me hope that I'm not alone. Awareness, and then the responsiveness that's always necessary. There's a story about a husband and wife who had been married for 45 years, and he was a typical Midwest farmer who didn't usually say anything to reflect his gratitude, his thanksgiving. And one day he just looked over at his wife and he realized how much she was so good to him. And he said, "You know, darling, I start to realize after 45 years that it's almost to the point where I just can't help but not say thank you." Almost can't help but not. What we need to be able to do is recognize blessings and then say, "Wow, thank you, thank you, thank you." All of that, I'm not much of a poet, as some of you might know, but there's a piece of poetry that I've hung around with for about 15 years by Billy Collins. Billy Collins was the poet laureate back 20 years ago for the nation. And he wrote a poem called "Sunday Morning with the Sensational Nightingales." And it captured this idea of just paying attention to what's going on. And it resonated with me because I like music. But listen, it was not the 5 Mississippi blind boys who lifted me off the ground that Sunday morning. As I drove down for the paper, some oranges and bread, nor was it the Dixie Hummingbirds or the Soul Stirrers, despite their quickening name, or even the Swan Silvertones who inspired me to look over the commotion of trees into the open vault of the sky. No, it was the sensational nightingales who happened to be singing on the gospel station early that Sunday morning and must be credited with the bumping up of my spirit, the arousal of the mice within. I have always loved this harmony, like 4, sometimes 5 trains running side by side over a contoured landscape that make a shining, shimmering red dirt landscape, wildflowers growing along the silver tracks, lace tablecloths covering the hills. The men and women in white shirts and dresses walking in the direction of a tall steeple Sunday morning in a perfect Georgia. But I'm not here to describe the sound of that falsetto whine, the sepulchral bass, the alto and the tenor fitted snugly in between, only to witness to my own minor ascension. That morning as they sang so parallel about the usual themes, the garden of suffering, the head of blood on the forehead, the beads of blood, the stone before the hillside tomb, and the ancient rolling waters we would all have to cross someday. God bless the sensational nightingales, I thought as I turned up the volume. God bless their families and their powder blue suits. They are a far cry from the quiet kneeling I was raised with, a far hand-clapping cry from the candles that glowed in the alcoves and the fixed eyes of saints staring down from their corners. Oh, my cap was on straight that Sunday morning, and I was fine keeping the car on the road. No one would have ever guessed I was being lifted into the air by nightingales, hoisted by their beaks like a long banner that curls across an empty blue sky, caught up in the annunciation of these high, most encouraging tidings. Let us pay attention to all the blessings that are always around us. A song, a flower, a friend, a text from your granddaughter. Whatever it is, pay attention. Give God thanks for all the blessings of life. Amen.